Hey guys, what is going on? It is me, BikuriBox12 here, and welcome back to another Realm of the Mad God video. I had the pleasure of gaining access to the testing server to try out the new Ancient Ruins dungeon that was just teased. I'm still not sure where it's going to drop from, perhaps Cyclops God, but in any case, this is indeed a Highlands dungeon just as advertised. About the same difficulty as a snake pit, give or take. Maybe a bit longer and a bit harder in some places, but overall I would say that's the general ballpark. Also, kudos to the art designers for this because despite the dungeon being almost entirely beige and gray, it actually looks really nice. I love the desert temple motif in video games. It's always given off a cool vibe to me. Certain parts of it actually have some really nice architecture that help allude to what this place may have used to look like back in the past. Great use of pillars, walls, and stones. As expected, there is a lot of quicksand everywhere. Pretty sure it functions the exact same way as in the Tomb of the Ancients. It's just not quite as life-threatening here as you would expect. It's like how in the Abyss of Demons there is a stone pathway to help you cross the lava without getting hurt. We have the same thing here, a lot of stone pathways to help keep you out of the sand. Enemy variety is pretty solid for the most part. The occasional bird, a giant ant, these cool towers that silence you. Reminded me a lot of the totem poles in the Forbidden Jungle. Nothing really hurts too much as expected, except for these warriors. They're sort of the brutes of this dungeon. They will charge you and they have the highest damage outputs. Out of everything to watch out for, bosses included, I would say these are actually the scariest enemies. And lastly, there are pieces of cactus lying around. They won't do anything on their own, but if you shoot them, they will explode. Pretty low damage even if you sit directly on top. Has a bleeding effect, but not detrimental. Again, Highlands dungeon, nothing too crazy here. But it does have a chance of dropping cactus juice, the newest health consumable item like holy water, healing ichors, or the honey. It gives you 120 HP and mana at the same time, but it causes self-hallucinating for 7.5 seconds. That's actually a really long duration and quite a drawback, but the HP and MP recovery is pretty good. The Ancient Ruins do feel like an old school dungeon to me, something that may have been around back in 2011 when Realm was just getting off its feet. It's got a very authentic feel about it, but still with a modern touch. Unlike the Snake Pit UDL Sprite World, where you kind of see a lot of the same patterns get repeated over and over, Ancient Ruins actually has a lot of variety in terms of tile set. You almost never see the same room twice on a single run, whether it's the varying amounts of sand, cactus, the dark to light tile ratio. Even the treasure room boss room has two variants, each affecting the boss's pattern, making it attack you differently. Yeah, let's talk about this guy for a second. He's a genie that comes out of a lamp if you walk up to it and rub it. Technically, you don't have to touch it, you can be within a tile of range, but I'm pretty sure that's what they were going for. He'll pop out, say a couple of things, and then start fighting you. Much like in the Cursed Library, I feel like the tea room boss is a lot harder than the main dungeon boss. He's got a series of well-telegraphed spiral attacks, and a bunch of AoE grenades that are really hard to dodge in the midst of it all. He still dies really quickly whenever you're maxed out and have high tier equipment, but trying to do a no damage run on this guy was actually hard to figure out. And as I said, his pattern will change depending on the room layout. Sometimes there will be these rock pillars that make it significantly harder, or it'll be a bit more open-ended. He also has multiple patterns per fight. He's not just a one-trick pony, another thing I'm really impressed with. But that's not to say that the main boss doesn't have its own flair as well. The Sandstone Titan, while easy for a higher level player, has a very robust fight, kind of similar to Gulpord from the Toxic Sewers, where you have this big moat around the room and a smaller one surrounding the boss. He also stays in the middle for most of the fight, summons little guys to attack you, and you have to kill them before you can start hitting him again, and then right before the final phase, he chases you. Actually, yeah, it's really similar to Gulpord now that I'm saying it out loud. These big sand spikes will come out of the ground, and they'll destroy some of the sandstone, revealing the actual quicksand under you, making it just a tad harder to dodge. When he chases you in the beginning and towards the end, it might be a little scary at first because you're not sure how much damage he's going to do. It's not a whole lot. You don't want him sitting on you if you don't have high defense, but it's nothing too crazy. Just make sure you don't get hit by the slows. Man, he even slows. Yeah, he's exactly like Gulpord. It's a pretty standard attack, not super hard to dodge. With maxed out attack and dexterity, he dies pretty quickly. He also doesn't go invulnerable too many times. It's about 3 or 4 times throughout the fight, just enough to keep him alive long enough, but not too long to draw it out. I was curious what this dungeon was going to drop as a potion, and as far as I can tell, all 6 main stat pots are possible here. No life and mana, of course, and I want to say that the Titan and Genie have their own separate drop tables. I don't think they both can drop all 6 pots, but I've gotten at least 3 from both, and I never got more than 1 pot at a time. So can't really say that this is a definitive source of any one given potion. I think speed and attack might be the most common, but I'd have to do a lot more to really know the average on that. It's actually kind of nice though, because you have a chance of leaving here with something new every time. If you don't feel like doing toxic sewers to get defense, you could end up getting lucky and getting them from here. The treasure room was also really common. I want to say it's like a 50-50 shot you'll get one, and even then there's a high probability you'll get 2 or 3. So that's a reasonably high possibility of 3 to 4 potions every time you complete this dungeon. He also drops a mark, so he will be a part of the daily quest, and we even have 3 UT items we can get. The amber encrusted helmet is a standard UT drop. It's not a white bag. Good thing too, because it's definitely not special enough to be a white bag. This is kind of like the snakeskin armor of this dungeon. You get the Berserk Party effect within 5 squares for 5 seconds, 6 defense and 6 speed, and only 70 MP. So no speedy, less defense, but you get a higher base speed and a lower mana cost. So yeah, not great, but again, as I said, it's not a white bag, and it's a Highlands dungeon. I'm okay with that. I do like how you can see this helmet sinking in the sand in the dungeon every now and then. That's a nice detail. Thankfully, the sword and seal are much better, and seeing as how I didn't get either one of these as a drop, I'm going to assume that at least one of them is a white bag. The Arcane Rapier Sword. 165 to 220 damage, so its maximum is Acclaim's minimum, but it has a range of 4. The shots pierce and boomerang. So we have lower DPS, of course, but the same rate of fire, higher range, which helps out melees a bunch, and piercing, so it's kind of like a katana. And if you happen to miss your target, the shots will boomerang back to where you were when you fired them, possibly picking up the slack. It can even help hit enemies that are behind you. If you shoot forward and then sidestep out of the way, an enemy from behind you could walk into it and get hit. That would take one heck of a 6th sense to pull off consistently, but it is one of the perks. When killing a bunch of regular gods and even some bosses, I didn't notice the DPS being that much lower. I really do think the extra range, piercing, and the boomerang allowed for more efficient DPS, even if not as powerful. It's going to vary from player to player, but I think people are going to like this. And then we have the Sandstone Seal. Instead of healing, you get a vitality increase by 30 for 7.5 seconds within 7.5 squares. Now the cool thing is, the vitality bonus can stack, but it doesn't go up by 30 every single time. In fact, it capped at 99. But high regen is still high regen. I was running through some lava to see which one could keep me alive best, and I'm pretty sure T6 was better just from eyeballing it, but it was actually a closer call than I was expecting. The damaging, however, is actually better because it lasts for 7.5 seconds, as opposed to G-Cookie, which is only about 6. So ironically, we actually have a better damaging effect here, but worse healing. 40 HP is nice, so is 3 dex, and the low mana cost of 70, so not too shabby. It's not as bad as the helmet, thankfully. This one actually has a little bit more to it. Seems like a fun idea. Again, Highlands dungeon, not expecting anything crazy. As long as it's better than EP, honestly, I'm satisfied. Lastly, there are actually a couple of quality of life updates that you've probably already seen in the footage. Firstly, health and mana bars now have this white portion extension, where anytime you're about to gain or lose health and mana, it shows you how much you're going to lose for a split second before draining. It's one of those quality of life changes that you didn't really think you needed, but it's yet another step to making the game feel more finished. We also have these snazzy new boss health portraits, where when you get close to a boss, its health bar will fill up and tell you how much it has for the duration of the fight. It even tells you what status effects it can inflict upon you. It's a bit cluttered when you're fighting more than one boss, like the Killer Bee Nest. Oh my goodness. But it's still nice to have. Cool to see them trying new things and implementing new elements. But by far the best change that many players have wanted for a while, and is still a work in progress, mind you, you can now change the transparency or opacity of your pet, ally projectiles, and ally sprites, all the way from fully transparent at 100% down to 25%, where they become this gray shape. This is going to be a lifesaver in the more hardcore bullet hell fights. Not sure when we're going to see this all implemented, but I gotta say, I'm impressed. I love the Ancient Ruins dungeon. I think it's great. For a Highlands dungeon too, I can see myself running this a lot just for the loot. And I think that really is the most important factor here. It doesn't really matter if the dungeon is too hard or too easy for my level currently. It just matters if I'm willing to do it, and if the dungeon's difficulty properly reflects its drop table. And in this case, I think it does. It's actually a bit on the generous side. Let me know what you guys think about all these changes. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, don't forget to check out the next episode whenever I post it, which will probably be soon. Alright? See ya.